Welcome back to Sprague Homestead. So I had told you guys in our big announcement video from last weekend that I was going to start taking over the updates. Nikki was going to work on our what we call our evergreen content that is always pertinent. You have questions, she has answers, sometimes I do too, and that stuff just sits out there and waits for you to need to know the answer. I'm going to try and keep you guys updated on what we're doing around here on the homestead. And this week, I tell you what, it has been hot. It's been like 95 the last 2 or 3 days. It has been a sweltering heat. It's a dry heat. That doesn't really matter when it's 4% humidity. It doesn't matter. It is hot. So as you can imagine, everybody on the farm or their homestead has just been trying to survive. Kind of like the 2020 year, the goal is survival, and that's the case. Previously showed you guys the hoop greenhouse, and we have had a great time eating out of here if we can keep the goats out. We've had goats show up in here twice. Those little monsters that get through the fence, they come in here and eat up. So you've got kale, lettuce, peas, got some green beans going. So this has been good. It's a little haggard at this point because it's getting so darn hot. It's hard to keep everything moist and growing, but this has been great. At our second dome greenhouse, it has been pretty good. We've kept up on the water here because when we water the main garden, the hose in here sprinkles everything in here. So it's kept nice and humid. Still got some stuff in here. Hasn't been great growing, but you can see we've got some squash and cucumber in here, plus some really good weeds. And then we have these random tomatillos. Apparently we didn't get all the seeds and stuff picked up from last year, so we're going to have some tomatillos potentially if they get going. But you can start to see some squash and cucumbers down over there starting to form up, and these guys have been good. And this is Dome 1, and it kind of sums up what has been going on with our gardening this year. As you can imagine, there is nothing planted in here. We haven't started watering at all this year. And it's just been kind of this way. We have been so busy on other stuff, we just really kind of haven't done any gardening this year, which is kind of sad. Last year this had so many tomatoes and stuff in here that we just couldn't even bear it. It was so much in here. Uh-oh. You got poopers on the road. So the main garden, we've done a pretty good job of keeping it watered. We fill up our cistern in the morning typically, turn the garden on here for a couple hours around lunchtime. And as you can see, we're growing cats really well that are running through the garden. You've got our Jerusalem artichokes, catnip, strawberries. They're growing well, they're just not putting out berries. The horseradish is out of control. And then everything else you can see is mostly grass. We really haven't been able to do a lot in here. We've got specific beds cleaned out. You can see the one right there that's all dirt. We got that one cleaned up and Nikki's planted in it. And then the rest of the beds, even the potatoes have been really struggling this year with just the heat and everything else. So gardening has not been our favor this year. So as you can imagine, the home improvement projects, like we said, were started out. Sunroom has been done. We grew chickens in there, and we haven't touched this thing since. So since we got the meat birds out there in the backyard and that, we haven't touched this thing. And I have bought the paint, I bought scrapers, I bought everything, and I haven't touched it. Haven't even got back to it. It's just been that kind of year where it seems like there's always something else that becomes more of a priority. Speaking of chickens, birds have been going awesome. So as you can kind of see in the background here, every day we put them into a new spot. So you've got basically an 8x8 square all over the place as we go through here. So we pull them to a new spot. Nikki's watering behind them to kind of get the chicken poop to kind of fertilize the grass and that, and then we water it in the morning also. So we don't have much for a backyard, but what we do have, the chickens are going. Now, remember we took out 98 and put 98 in here. Guess how many are in there? 98. We haven't lost any. There were 2 or 3 that were kind of on the small size, and they have started to catch up finally. These guys are somewhere about 3 weeks out from being butchered and processed and delivered to our customers. So if you guys are on the wait list for chickens, just start picking them out. Say, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one. Just kidding, don't do that, because we won't know what they are in the end. But you can imagine these guys are starting to just be little bowling balls on legs. Really good quality meat. We've had these since last year, or we had a set last year of these. And I tell you what, we're still eating heartily and healthy on these guys. So we got 98 of them in here. We may have a few extras, don't know yet, but these guys are doing awesome out here in the yard. Now the Hipcamp thing, I will say that I wasn't too sure about all of it yet, but the Hipcamp has been pretty awesome. So Nikki has been making this outhouse here. As you can imagine, it's not a home creation, but it's recycled materials. This is stuff off of other projects we've had. And it's pretty ingenious. I think she found the plans online and kind of put together her own version of it, but it's pretty ingenious the way it works. Down under here, we had to buy the toilet, obviously, but it's seriously just a straight bucket. We'll have some toilet paper in here, a piece with some shavings in it, some wood shavings or chips or whatever, and you kind of sprinkle it in there after you've gone to the bathroom, and then all you have to do is lift it up, put that down, this lifts up, and then you can just swap buckets out for your campers. Now the Hipcamp has been doing pretty darn well. I think we put up our ad or our sites on June 25th. It is not even 1 month in, so less than 30 days. I think Nikki said the other night we had 17 nights booked. This past weekend we had a family here that had a 5-year-old boy that was having his birthday. They stayed for 4 days. They had a great time. And then our other site had an older couple that was here with their own camper, and they stayed for 3 nights. So we've done pretty good. I'm surprised at it. I didn't really know that it would work out that well, but it's been very awesome. Just kind of adds all to it. We'll add in this outhouse here, and we will get another one built. I think we've got more materials, and we've got to get a couple extra things. But as you can see, Nikki's keeping her carpentry skills in, getting these built, and it's on a pallet. So that's a feed pallet that when we get our bulk feed, we put it on a pallet, we pick it up with the forks and take it down with the tractor as we need to. When it's time to come back, you just scoop it up with the tractor forks, bring it on back. So now you guys are probably wondering, how did we become a Wild West show? So Monday, I was in town running some errands. I took in some pop bottles that were recyclables for, in Oregon, we get charged 10 cents on the front end of any bottle or glass or can. Take those in, get them recycled. So I took those in, got mail, got some lunch and everything else. So Nikki says, hey, this guy shows up. He goes ripping down our property in his UTV. So she gets on our quad, goes after him. She's like, man, we're not gonna tolerate people trespassing, ripping up our property. So she gets down there, runs into a nice gentleman. He actually owns the cows. So we've talked about trying to keep the range cows out, and he actually owns the cows. So she talks to him back and forth, and it sounds like they want to help us fence our property and get the cows out of here this week. So that'll be probably this weekend that we're going to work on that. But how it happened is, as you can imagine, as a 5-year-old boy, a cowboy, a real cowboy, chasing cows on horseback with spurs and all, showed up. He thought it was amazing. Heck, at 45, I think it's amazing. There are still real cowboys out there chasing cows on horseback with spurs and all the get-up. Cowboy hat, belt buckle, everything. So we became a Wild West show. As you can imagine, for a 5-year-old birthday party, what an adventure. And of course, when the chips are down, everything needs maintenance. The white truck over here has needed a radiator for almost 2 years. I finally got that put in. Nikki's Suburban, the orange and black bunny battle wagon, it needed a new ball joint. I found that out a couple weeks ago. Figured that out just changing tires after it started eating up the inside of one of the front tires. So I got that changed out today. Had to put in a new press into the shop, and then mine's starting to do weird stuff too. When you have vehicles that have 250,000 miles on them, sometimes they just need a lot of maintenance. But it's far cheaper than a new $75,000 truck, I'll tell you that.
So beyond everything Kanan's talked about, we're still hatching a ton of birds. So if you're looking for chickens, hit us up. I've got millions of Dominiques is how it feels. It's just a ton of little guys between newly hatched to about 4 weeks. So we have tons. I got some geese again. Turkeys aren't doing much, but there you go. And I am breeding the bejeebers out of the rabbits. So that's about all from my end.
Yep, so I've been labeling myself lately a chicken tycoon because we have chickens everywhere. But as you can imagine, we are trying trying to keep this place going. It has been so hot lately. Thankfully, I think tomorrow is supposed to drop 10 degrees to the mid 80s. But otherwise, we're just trying to survive. Keep
And
this
that's
going.
part of the problem is the up and down temperature. As Kanan showed you, the garden is miserable. We thought this was going to be our best gardening year ever, and it has turned into actually my worst. We've lost a ton of stuff that came up and died. Came up, couldn't keep it wet enough. It's just been miserable. Just miserable.
I know. So otherwise, we're still trucking on. Don't have any good updates beyond that. So I think we'll conclude that for the week of everything we're trying to do. Nikki's made about 3-4 videos today that we'll have out in the next week.
Yeah, 4 I think.
So we'll get those up in the next week, and that is pretty much it. We'll see you next time from Sprague Homestead.
Happy homesteading.